In the next 20 minutes or so before lunch, I've reduced this a little bit, but I just want to focus on some key messages around how you do that communication. I think it's obvious now that you recognize that it's critical to support you in your process to modernize your geospatial reference system. If you don't consider yourself being good at this, I've got two suggestions. One is practice, keep doing it because you need to get better, whether you like it or not. It is part of your role. And also find other people within your government or within your agency who can help you with this. They're people who are naturally good at this. Some of the tricks is in communication, they talk about show, don't tell. So don't sit there and talk to someone, but show them the benefit. Give them an example that they can understand. Also create personalized examples. I mentioned the one the other day about understanding what the drivers are of particular ministers or the managers that you have and personalizing the message so that you can engage with them on a level that you'll get their attention. So this all comes back at a national scale to where this was made understandable and visible, as I mentioned, in 2015. This is a global mandate. And I already know a lot of countries use this global mandate. They talk about United Nations General Assembly Resolution 2015, number 69266. I read it in so many country reports. 69266 comes up all the time. You point to this as your mandate. This is recognition from United Nations member states that geodesy is important and it's fundamental to what you do. So I don't know what it's like in your country, but there's often, when you're thinking about budgetary funding each financial year, you need to put in where have we legally defined that what I do as a function in my job is important. They're called mandates. This is a mandate you can use to point to where it's been accepted internationally. The next thing we've got to do is talk to decision makers. On the left-hand side here are many of the people who are heavily influential in the development of that General Assembly resolution at the time. So we've got people who are scientists, we've got people who are communicators, and we've got people who are senior leaders in government, and then we've got a representative from the UN Secretariat. That's the kind of mix of people you're looking for if you're going to get this done. On the right-hand side, they were talking about this was the name of the resolution, Global Geodetic Reference Frame. But you can see the examples that they were putting together there. It was not, as you said, it wasn't about the fifth order polynomial. It was about natural hazard and disaster management, climate change and sea level monitoring, geospatial mapping and navigation. These are all things that the member states could understand. So when the resolution came across them, they were like, yeah, of course, this stuff's fundamental to what we do. Of course, we're going to support that. Talk to industry. Explain to industry. This is the awareness raising sideways. Make them understand how reliant they are on you. We're doing some of this, as I mentioned, and we're starting to get this information out through policy briefs, but you need to get industry engaged because they are the ones, when government are trying to decide whether or not they're going to give you money, what they're really working out is industry going to use this technology to make money and pay revenue back to the government, pay taxes back to the government. If industry don't know the importance of what you do or why you exist, then you're not going to get the money. You've got to go and talk with industry and make them understand how dependent they are on you. So make those connections. Talk to the media. Who put your hand up if it scares you to think about talking to the media. Come on, there's a lot of lies in this room at the moment. Every hand should be up. That's hard. That's really hard. Because particularly nowadays, they're interested in a 7-second soundbite. And you've got to have that 7-second soundbite ready, which is scary. Sure, you can get a chance to then tell a longer story if they're interested in that 7 seconds, but you've almost got 7 seconds to capture their attention. They're critical though, because we need to grow public awareness. There's some who might argue, well, geodesy is a specialized science, blah, blah, blah. And whether you like it or not, you need to have more public awareness about geodesy. It needs to be a term that more people understand. Otherwise, people aren't going to study it, and the media aren't going to report on it, and the governments are not going to support it with money. Yes, you can say, well, we don't want to mention the word geodesy. You don't have to, but you need to be talking about the applications and the benefits. When you do talk to the media, think about what your audience, what do you want them to remember after the event? And then make sure you're preparing very simple messages that are going to help them understand and take it away. Don't try and explain everything to them. Like you wouldn't try and explain why you're trying to modernize the geospatial reference system. It's too big, it's too complicated. But you might explain the benefits of a cause network. You might say, we want to improve the positioning capability in this country because it's critical for industry XYZ. It's going to generate XYZ in revenue back to the government, according to this case study that we've done. Like they're the things that a media can pick up and go, right, I understand that. And then you get an industry person standing next to you who says, yeah, this would be great. It's going to make our life 20% easier, or it's going to bring in X amount of extra revenue, or save this many people's lives on average every year. That's the kind of quick sound bites that you're looking for. Have events. This is where you need to bring in people from your communications department or bring in experts from other fields. Who knows who this is? Again, quick show of hands. I'm making sure you're awake today. Got a few. This is a wonderful man. His name is, if you don't even know who he is, then you've used things that he's done. This is Zahir El-Tamimi from France. And Zahir is the person who has developed, as far as I know, every single international terrestrial reference frame realization. He's the guy who collects all the data, brings it all together, and develops the ITRF. So they were running this event in Norway, in Svalbard, where they've got the dual VLBI antennas, and they're currently installing an SLR station. They ran an event, and they brought out Zahir and a range of other people, and they brought the media, and they're talking about the importance of what is done. So you can bring people together, tell stories, and of course they didn't just have Zahir there. They had other people from the ministry and had some industry players there. Get someone from NASA, because everyone loves NASA. You know, you think about what is the media, what's going to attract the media's attention to get them to come out to this event. Another clever one that was done a number of years ago was, in this case, this is a UN meeting. It was a side event that was run where countries brought along their either permanent mission staff or high-level ranking officials from within their government. So they may not necessarily, and in many cases, they weren't people who were responsible for geodesy, but they were senior leaders. And you invited them along to the UN and you got them to talk about the benefits of things to their country. So it was an opportunity for member states to engage with someone at a high level within their country, and then have that person be a champion or an advocate and a spokesperson. And if you can offer them the opportunity to come along to the United Nations meeting in New York, that can sometimes be a draw card to get them to join you and become a champion for you. So this was done about 10 years ago in the lead up to the General Assembly. We're looking to try and redo this again this year. And we've started inviting some people who we hope can be there next month to sit on the forum from permanent missions. And I'm very grateful. Tambua has already got support from his permanent secretary to come along and represent Fiji. So it's great to be able to tell that story of the important role Fiji played 10 years ago and where we are now to have that representation. This is an example, again, drawing from what I mentioned Martine Wolf presented in March at our meeting. Ryan just made the great point about, you know, how do you promote this? How do you sell this message? When it came to talking about funding for Geoscience Australia, for a Positioning Australia program, the two words there that are highlighted in 1 and 2 are actually the words that went into the budget profile. And so they called it Better GPS for Regional Australia and Better GPS to support Australian businesses. Now, us as geodesists, we read that and we're like, that's not what we're doing. But that's a great way to explain the impact of what we're doing for regional Australia and for supporting Australian businesses. And it happened at the time that things like supporting regional Australia was a big initiative of the government. So how do we capitalize on what the government is thinking about? This is what Ryan was saying before. What's the priority for the government now? And with Geodesy, you can link everything to the priorities of the government because Geodesy underpins everything. So this process is relatively easy, but you've just got to think about it from the other perspective. And it made messaging a lot simpler when you're trying to explain the benefits of what you do, because hardly anyone is going to dig in and say, how do you actually do that? What they care about is the impact. So start with the impact and give them that impact statement. Give them pretty pictures. Look at that. That's a positioning dot on top of a driverless tractor, 2 driverless tractors, and it's showing the path that it's going down to do fertilizing of that area or cropping of that area. Now, these were actually converted into videos, and there was a story and a narrative about what was going to be the impact for precision agriculture, how much time it was going to save, how much fertilizer it was going to save, what would be the efficiency gains, what would be the enhanced crop yield over time. They had all these narrative because they'd run some case studies with farmers. And then when it came time to decide whether or not there was going to be support for this Positioning Australia money, the Department of Agriculture was getting messages from people going, this stuff's really good. You should support that when it goes up to get government funding, because that's really going to help us. So you've got all these stakeholders coming in and just supporting everything that you're doing because you've demonstrated the benefits. Makes total sense when you hear it, but how many of you have done this? Exactly. You know it's the right thing to do, and you know it's going to help you, but you also have your day jobs, right? You don't have time to run these kind of events. So what does that mean? You need partners. You got to find partners, work with partners. You can't do this on your own. You need a team. The other thing, economic benefit studies. They are gold. They are gold. Who's got kids here? Yeah. You ever tell your kids something and they don't listen, but they hear it from somebody else? They listen, right? Exactly. That's like consultants. You got to engage consultants. Get somebody else to tell your boss or your minister where the value is and what the benefits are. They'll listen to them. They might not listen to you, but they'll listen to somebody else. So get these kind of economics benefit studies are really valuable. And yes, I appreciate they're hard. And I would strongly recommend that if you engage consultants, you play a key role in keeping them focused, keeping them on track, and getting the messages aligned with what you want. But they can go and do the hard work on trying to understand what would be the cost benefit ratio. So you started thinking about numbers here, about what would the cost be. Don't just think about explaining the cost to the minister. Think about how can I then also get an economic benefit study done to estimate the benefit. So then if it's a 3-to-1, 4-to-1 ratio, you can say for every dollar we invest in 10 years, we're going to get $4 back. That becomes a lot more marketable to send to the minister rather than saying, I need $25 million. They're going to say, why? Demonstrate to me what's the benefit of that. This is how you do it. You got to work with those consultants. The best results are when you work alongside them and they end up doing the job that you don't have time to do, but you can guide them through that process. Here's the partnerships and stakeholders. In those circles there, Martine's identified governments, academia, industry. The 1.1 in the Joint Development Plan on Global Geodesy that I mentioned the other day, if there's one thing that you're going to go back to your country and do, it is to develop a country level committee or a country level working group that includes government representatives, academia and industry, all the different players. And you get together maybe 4 times a year. Maybe that's all it is. And you meet and you talk about what are you currently doing? What are your needs? What could we be doing in the future? How could we collaborate? The benefits of this I've seen in Australia were phenomenal. And we heard from New Zealand, who have recently done this in their country, and the benefits that's providing them to bring together, particularly the academic and the policy sectors, to get stronger support for VLBI. Media relations, as I said, bring the media to your event, understand how they work. If you're lucky enough to have some communications or a media team within your agency, talk to them. Go and visit them. When I was at Geoscience Australia, I used to find an excuse to walk past the communications team or the media team once a week, just to say hello, tell them what I was working on. Sometimes they'd give me great ideas about events or things that were happening. where you could take advantage of trying to promote some of the work that you're doing, particularly with Geodesy, because it was really hard. And it takes a long time for them to get to understand your business. And they need to understand your business better than most external people do, because they can help you craft that message. So go and talk to your media team, your comms team, build up a good rapport with them. In the interviews, some advice, be yourself. And that's very hard to do when you just start out like this. I'm the first to admit. Public speaking, I was saying to someone the other day, if I was going in the first couple of years that I started at work, if I was going to an event, if I was talking at 4:30 in the afternoon, I couldn't eat all day. I would wake up feeling sick. I'd feel sick all day. I couldn't eat until I gave my event, and then I'd feel like I was going to pass out. I hated public speaking, and you only get better at it the more you practice. You look at me now and you think you're lying, because I feel much more comfortable now, but I'm not lying. That's how I felt. It was awful, and you only get better the more that you do it. So practice, practice, practice. And the more you do it, the more you find that you can be yourself and be a little more comfortable. And when you bring more of yourself, I think it helps get the message across. Tell the truth. Pick a few things you want to talk about and speak the truth in your language. Be prepared. Practice, practice, practice. Practice in the mirror. That's the big one. There's nothing more awkward than doing like a practice media interview and watching yourself in the mirror. When you watch it back on video, you go, like, that's nothing compared to what it's like watching yourself in the mirror. So trust me, try it in front of the mirror. Kill your darlings. That's a really weird one. This is from the communications world. This is the language they use. If you spent 10 years of your life working on a fifth order polynomial, as Ryan mentioned, please don't talk about a fifth order polynomial. You might love it. You might think it's your darling. Don't talk about it. And sometimes you can do that by practicing with someone else. And if they say, what the hell is a fifth order polynomial? You go, okay, I need to kill that darling. I can't talk about that bit. Sometimes you can ask for the questions beforehand. What kind of things, if the media are coming to the event, what kind of things would you like them to focus on? What kind of things are they interested in? That can be a way of getting prepared and understanding, so you're not shocked when you get the questions. Take pauses. A pause is very effective to get a point across. Silence is a really effective tool. A lot of people, when they're practicing, they start and they'll talk and they talk and they talk and they say geodesy is really important and it's going to be helpful for our community. It's going to make it safer. And then it's going to make it, like, you've got to get yourself away from saying ums and ahs and pick the point you're trying to make. It's community safety, economic stability, support critical infrastructure. Tick, tick, tick. That's what a politician would, that's how a politician would speak, because they're very good public speakers. That's what the media want to hear, because it's a very simple message they can communicate. Keep it really simple. You can sometimes look at the journalist and, as I said, practice in front of the mirror. These are the things that make things newsworthy. So if you're thinking about, okay, we've done this, we've developed a cause network, we're trying to get support for a cause network, how can you make it newsworthy? So this is more like if you're trying to actually get promotion of the work that you're doing. The things that are newsworthy are conflict. So that could be a link with national security. Impact. So what would be the impact for people? Proximity. So is it close to me? Or is it a personal story about somebody? So instead of talking about farmers, you would want to go out and visit a farmer and talk about a specific farmer and their specific role and the specific impact for them. Things that are sensational, of course, and then is it current? Is it happening now? Because something that happened 3 months ago is not as relevant to people as something that's happening now. So these are just a few useful things to think about when you're developing that story or that narrative. Now, we're going to go for lunch now, but this is your challenge when we come back from lunch. This is going to make you sweat. Work in groups of 2, and you're going to think about development of a elevator pitch. And the elevator pitch could be that you walk into the office and you see your boss and she's standing next to you and you both press 15. You think, oh, this is going to be a long lift ride. She says to you, oh, hi, I'm such and such, and I'm the CEO, and tell me about what you're doing. Yeah. You can either get out on the second floor or you can have an elevator pitch ready. And your elevator pitch, you think, how am I going to say I'm modernizing the geospatial reference system without using any of those words? So when we come back from the break, you can start thinking about it over lunch, obviously, but when we come back, think you don't need to talk about the whole system. Maybe you want to pick one aspect of it. What's the thing that you want to get support for now? You can write those sort of dot points out technically, and then using some of the information we've got in here, how can you translate that message into something I could use in an elevator pitch to the boss? I've got 30 seconds. How am I going to convince her that what I'm doing is amazing and life-changing and it deserves her support and attention? And then what you're going to do, so you write your technical, then you'll translate that into a 30-second elevator pitch, 30-second speech. And then your buddy, you're going to work with a buddy, you're going to film each other and you're going to do your 30-second pitch. Okay? And you're going to practice. Do it once, watch it back, think, all right, maybe it went for 45 seconds or it went for a minute. Maybe I didn't hit my key note, and you can give each other a bit of feedback and then do it again and do it again. All right? So you'll have about half an hour to go through that exercise when you come back. If you want to start drafting it in your lunch break, please feel free. But I'm not going to have a chat session when we come back. I just encourage you to come back at 1:30, start writing those notes down and find a friend and record each other. And then if you want to share those with us and get some feedback, I think Wallace sent around a link where you can upload those, and I'm happy to review them and give you some feedback, but you don't have to. That's totally up to you. All right. So,
okay, everyone. So as Nick's loading this up,